From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
An alpaca on an adventure, how he's putting the spotlight on one farm. Back in black.
Fun to go to the sales ring with some calves or sell them direct and get that kind of money.
We check in on the state of the beef industry as prices soar, as harvest kicks off in some key growing areas.
I'm Michelle Rick here in Kansas as we kick off our 2023 I-80 Harvest Tour.
What farmers say they're seeing out in the field as combines roll right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the testing grounds meet the proving grounds. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Harvest is starting to pick up pace as USDA says soybean harvest is officially underway. And it's running slightly ahead of schedule. And the latest crop progress report putting corn harvest at 9%. That's 2% ahead of average. Conditions dropping slightly with 51% now rated good to excellent, down 1% from last week. As for soybeans, now 5% harvested. That's 1% ahead of the 5-year average with condition ratings the same as last week at 52% rated good to excellent. Cotton harvest running a bit behind, now 9% complete compared to the average of 10%, while winter wheat planting picking up pace, now at 15% in the ground, just 1% behind normal.
The I-80 Harvest Tour on AgDay is brought to you by Case IH. The Farm All has been the iconic partner on the farm for generations. Come celebrate a century of Farm All, the one for all, at farmall100.com. And by AGI. At AGI, we spend a lot of time focused on our product details, making sure you can store your grain how you need to and move it when you need to. Learn more at aggrowth.com.
The corn harvest in Kansas is making good progress with about a quarter of the crop out of the field. However, with the drought, only 32% of the crop is rated good to excellent, and for beans, it's even less at 23%. Yet, as AgDay's Michelle Rook found, there's still some areas where farmers are pleasantly surprised with what they're finding in the field.
While widespread drought plagued much of the state of Kansas again this year, there were a few notable exceptions, including here in the Northeast.
Ken and Brad McCulley feel very fortunate this season. In a year where nearly 70% of Kansas is under D1 to D4 drought, they're seeing the results of some timely rains.
We had a dry spell early, like in June, and the end of June into July, we had 5 inches of rain in June, 5 inches in July, and then not quite 5 in August.
However, they say they're the exception, and you don't have to go very far before the drought and heat are evident.
It's pretty close to ideal right here, but west and south of us, it's not near that well off. They're really hurting for moisture. The pattern's changed a little bit, but right now it's gone back to they're dry in central and northwest Kansas.
As the combines roll through McCulley's fields, they're not finding the corn they did last year, but still are above APH, so they're pleased.
We started on some of our better ground, and the yields were 220, 230, even a little better than that in places. And we went to some of our worst ground and still hitting the close to 200 mark in places.
And while the drought has cut statewide corn yields in Kansas again this year, the average may be above 2022.
I don't think it'll be down from last year because last year was pretty low. We were down in the 500 million bushel, and I think we'll be up in closer to 6 maybe.
He says they did find some tar spot in the corn, but it came so late it may not have hurt yields or test weights, which are running 58 to 60 pounds. And the corn won't need much drying as maturity was pushed by the heat.
Our moisture level in the corn right now is 17 to 19%.
The McCulleys are a couple of weeks away from combining soybeans, but they're not expecting bumper yields.
I see soybean yields kind of like corn, not as on the top end as last year, but we're going to have 70 plus.
Disease pressure played a role, but so did the weather.
When that sudden death hit, those fields are going to be short because we've had it before and it really hurts your yield. In August, when it got so hot for 10 days, ridiculously hot, and I think that took some yield out of the beans.
So the McCaulleys and farmers across Kansas are hoping the weather pattern will change and finally break the drought as they move into 2024. In Kansas, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
It looks like the central part of the U.S. is going to see more summer-like conditions for a few more days. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us with more.
Yeah, it's one thing we visited yesterday. It's the temperatures building in and across the United States. And like what we had earlier this summer, it's not one or two locations or one sector of the United States that's going to be under some of these warmer conditions. It's 2/3 of the United States under a ridge of high pressure. So temperatures this afternoon, seeing more of the 80s, but we work out of the triple digits into Texas, back up. Well, we stay in the triple digits, but back up into the mid to upper 80s for a number of locations in across the United States where we're not getting to the 80s. We're in the 70s in the Dakotas. Rapid City, 75 degrees. You got Bismarck at 71, 82 in Minneapolis, and that extends back down into the Midwest as well, including Ohio, Cincinnati, as well as St. Louis at 83 degrees, triple digits back down towards the bottom part of your screen in Texas. How about this? We're going to New Brunswick, and this is courtesy of Roy. While Hurricane Lee didn't appear to cause a ton of damage, it still wasn't good news for the corn crop. He said this was the worst spot west in New Brunswick. He says he knew the corn looked too good for Lee to leave it alone. Tough to see. Talk more about that extended forecast in just a bit.
With only 7 calendar days left to craft and pass a new farm bill before the current farm bill runs out, Republican Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley says a one-year extension is likely. The Congressional Budget Office currently has baseline spending over a 10-year period at $1.51 trillion. Now, $1.2 trillion of that is for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And as Democrats on the Senate Ag Committee say, they're still searching for more funding. There's now speculation the Senate Finance Panel may provide $5 billion in additional farm bill funding beyond the baseline. However, Grassley says he's skeptical of that, saying if the Finance Committee finds that money, they'll keep it for other programs. Instead, Senate Ag Committee Republicans are pushing to transfer about $18 billion in climate funding for ag conservation programs to the Farm Bill baseline for conservation programs.
Well, it should be, and I have an amendment in that would do that.
Okay.
And it would save about $8 billion that could be used elsewhere in the farm program, including for the benefit of farmers, because we don't think you ought to be able to spend money out of the CCC program unless it's specifically authorized by the Congress of the United States. It should not be a slush fund for a Secretary of Agriculture to use as he sees fit, and the power of the purse rests with the Congress of the United States, not with the Secretary of Agriculture.
Grassley telling AgriTalk the focus of the Farm Bill should be building a strong safety net for farmers, especially with the increasing costs of seed, fertilizer, and other inputs. Meanwhile, Senate Ag Committee Chair Debbie Stabenow, a Democrat from Michigan, says she thinks a new Farm Bill can get done in December. Wheat prices here at home are on the decline on Tuesday as the first grain ship departed Ukraine's Black Sea port since the end of the Black Sea grain deal. That ship leaving Ukraine's Chornomorsk port, that despite Russia's effective blockade of Black Sea facilities since the end of the grain deal back in July. Now, it's reported that ship was carrying about 3,000 tons of wheat en route to the Bosphorus Strait. Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General says they are continuing to work to revive the initiative.
This is not going to be easy, and we are seeing an escalation that is very dangerous, because not only the Black Sea Initiative was suspended, but we have witnessed a number of bombardments in relation to terminals, food terminals, in relation to warehouses. And this is, of course, a very serious threat, and it is even undermining our efforts. We have a memorandum of understanding to facilitate the exports of Russian food and fertilizers with key actors, the European Union, the United States, and others, within the framework of the sanctions, but removing some obstacles and difficulties that exist. But as you can imagine, our partners in that, with what has happened and with this kind of bombardments, start to be doubtful about the will of the Russian Federation to come back to the Black Sea Agreement.
While the potential reopening of seaports could revive trade routes, there are concerns about the increasing risks in the Black Sea, which is deterring ship owners, crews, and insurers. Tuesday was a mixed bag for commodities as traders search for new market direction. We'll discuss that coming up next. And later, a drive-through loving alpaca. That makes sense. We'll tell you how it's educating people about the livestock industry in the country. Corn futures rebounded on Tuesday thanks to continued strength in crude oil. Michelle Rook is back with more on that in Markets Now.
Mixed markets on Tuesday. Oliver Slope Blue Line Futures is joining us with analysis. And let's talk about that corn market, new lows, and then kind of popped up to the plus side. Do you think we have much more downside risk in that market?
Well, the recovery off the lows was certainly encouraging after trading to our lowest price in September of 2021. But the rebound, to stick your neck out and say that the low is in, I think is more or less a fool's errand. We need to see consecutive closes back out above some big technical levels, 472 being the main one, which was the recent lows that we broke below yesterday. Want to see consecutive closes out above there. Potentially, if we can achieve that, we start to spark a little bit more short covering. Funds holding a net short position of about 135,000 contracts. That's their largest net short position since August of 2020. So a big position there. I'm not sure what the catalyst would be to really get them, covering in a meaningful way, especially with harvest starting to pick up at 9% complete. It's going to be really interesting to see how these yields come out of the fields, and that'll probably give us a little bit more direction in terms of price action.
What about soybeans, a lower day, but we've done some pretty significant technical damage there, haven't we?
Yeah, soybeans broke below the 200-day moving average, and that really opened the door for some additional long liquidation, which we saw in the decline in open interest, indicating that longs were exiting. As of Friday's commitment to traders report, funds were long about 74,000 contracts, and that has been declining week over week. So the 100-day moving average has been really the next target for us. That comes in at 1304.
And a little correction in live cattle after new contract highs, but do you think we're going to go back up, maybe test 200 at some point in the front month?
Funds have been defending a large net long position going back to April. They're long about 98,000 contracts right now, but they've been holding out above 80,000 contracts since April. So they haven't had any reason to exit that. I don't know that there will be anytime soon. Seasonally, maybe we see a little bit of weakness here, but I think ultimately we chop around. I wouldn't be surprised to see one big push higher in these cattle markets, kind of similar to what we saw in 2014, where I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, got squeezed out of short positions, and ultimately that led to a little bit of a blow off top, and we haven't gotten that yet.
Thanks so much for joining us. Oliver Slope Blue Line Futures. We'll have more Ag Day coming up.
We're looking over the flooding potential. So again, all talk has been about the warmth coming with this next ridge of high pressure. While it's not all that great, about a 5 to 15% chance of seeing some heavy downpours into Oklahoma, into Missouri, and into the Dakotas. The reason why we're not getting back into the yellows or even deeper down this legend is because of the ridge that is building. Now, as we transition from the ridge of high pressure dominating the United States to a trough of low pressure, the lift in the atmosphere will start to increase. So by Thursday and Friday, that transition starts to happen, and there's the yellow starting to show up in the Dakotas, about a 15 to 40% chance of some flooding potential in those locations. And you'll see now that with that trough starting to dig back down here from the north to the south, the same areas are going to be seeing the best chance of rain and the possibility of some flooding, or at least a flooding potential. Not quite into the red or the purple, but you'll see this start to move to the east with that digging trough. And remember, when we look at the jet stream, and that's what we were visiting yesterday, and we'll do it again right here. This is on Wednesday. The trough is still back out here, off towards the Pacific Northwest as we go into Thursday and Friday with those two graphics starting to match up. And you see the trough, the cutoff low starts to dig back down here to the south, and where we have the ridge of high pressure and that trough to the south, in between is where we get the best lift in the atmosphere. So that's why, again, they're seeing the potential for some flooding in the Dakotas on Friday, and then that is going to move to the east as we go through the weekend, through Saturday and Sunday. And then by Monday and Tuesday, we'll break down this ridge of high pressure, this pattern, and start to see some cooler than average temperatures looking like next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in that long-term trend. So to put it a different way, the precipitation outlook between September 24th and 28th, we actually go back to lower or normal than normal conditions regarding the precipitation, higher off towards the East Coast. Start off in New Mexico, mostly cloudy, high around 83 degrees. We're over near Albuquerque with the city, low about 56, Belen. And Mexico, Missouri, we've got some showers, isolated, high around 71 degrees, low of 60. And then up to Vermont, sunny, high around 67 degrees.
Supplies, demand, cost of feed, there's a lot of things that go into a cattleman's balance sheet. We'll discuss where that stands coming up next. And later, a farmer in Wisconsin is finding ROI from taking her alpaca to the drive-thru. That story in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Save instantly when you buy 2 or more eligible Firestone Ag tires during the Go Harvest Rewards promotion. Visit firestoneag.com or contact your local certified Firestone Ag dealer. AgDay is brought to you by Agorocarbon. Agorocarbon works with farmers and ranchers to implement sustainable practices on farms and ranches that provides a new revenue stream. Agorocarbon.com.
The U.S. cattle industry is at a low in the supply cycle due to widespread drought, and that has pushed cattle prices to record highs. As we continue our series on the state of the beef industry, we look at whether or not that's equating to profitability for cattle producers. Now, for producers in the cow-calf business, they're finally seeing some black ink on their balance sheets.
It's fun to go to the sales ring with some calves or sell them direct and get that kind of money. It's been a long time coming, but they're certainly enjoying that. Some of the benefit of the prices was cushioned just by inflation. Everything is so much more expensive than it has been. So where we think that we could really be making some grounds to build back that equity that we lost the last few years, we're not going to build that back as fast as we'd hoped.
For backgrounders and feedlot operators, the profits are also there, but the margins are just narrower with higher replacement costs.
You know, I will tell you, as I'm trying to put a break even together in terms of buying a fair number of calves for fall delivery, it's pretty difficult right now, given the level of the input costs.
However, Wilkinson says lower corn prices are a big plus for feedlot closeouts. You can read more about the state of the beef industry at agweb.com, and tomorrow we'll look at how long this bull market might last. A new milk production report shows that cow numbers are down slightly from a year ago. USDA's August report putting production overall down 0.2%, coming in at 19 billion pounds. Now, production per cow averaging over 2,021 pounds, down a pound from August of last year. The number of milk cows was at 9.39 million head, 16,000 head less than last year. Experts calling the report bearish.
Cow numbers were 1,000 cows more in August and July in the top 24 states and unchanged in the U.S. That's pretty significant as we have seen low milk prices. And we're looking at the significant culling that's been going on, but we're actually holding milk cow numbers, and production per cow is not too much lower than a year ago, only a 1 pound per cow lower in the top 20 or a top in the U.S. states.
Schmal says instead of more of a pullback like the market saw a year and a half ago that produced record milk prices, we're seeing some stability and the potential for some increases in production toward the end of the year. It's also interesting to note that among the top 6 production states, New York surpassed Texas to move into the 4th spot. That was largely due to the impact of that massive fire in April at a Texas Panhandle dairy farm that killed nearly 18,000 head of cattle. Well, up next, a new direction for an alpaca farmer in Wisconsin. How a trip to the drive-thru is helping her be an advocate for agriculture. Next in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Purina. Unlock your dairy beef calves' potential with Prime Start, a specialized nutrition protocol to optimize growth and profit. Visit purinamills.com/dairy-beef to learn more.
A trip through the drive-thru is turning one farm into internet gold. Take a look.
Yes, I'd like a pup for my alpaca, please. Thank you.
A surprise for baristas at a Starbucks drive-thru in River Falls, Wisconsin, when Oliver the alpaca paid them a visit. Now, his adventure to the coffee shop has millions of views right now on TikTok. His owner, Carrie, says he lives at Eagle Eye Farms, and this is just one of his videos that has really taken off. Now, Carrie says she's using all of the attention to help educate the public about the woolly animals. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Griffiths. Have a great day.